Hello and welcome to another episode of the EOC Podcast, Emergency Operations Conversations. I am your host, Jeff Perkins, and I'm happy to have you again with me today as we tackle the complex and evolving story, which is the 2025 Los Angeles wildfires. Now, these wildfires have impacted thousands, displaced tens or even hundreds of thousands of people, and have drawn firefighting resources from across the western United States. In this episode, I'll break down every moment of the incident, from first ignition through the latest developments. Along the way, I'll also explore technologies, mutual aid agreements, and emergency management systems that have worked, sometimes seamlessly, and sometimes with notable challenges. One thing that I will not do is engage in any sort of political banter and start finger pointing on what possible political affiliation may have been to blame for this. Unfortunately, I've seen way too many of that in mainstream media, and I would like to actually just bring in simply the facts as I've been able to find them. So grab a coffee, buckle in, and join me as we analyze what has become one of California's most significant, if not the most significant, wildfire event in recent memory. Now let's go back to the morning of January 7th, 2025. It's 10:30 a.m. and the first report of fire comes from the Pacific Palisades neighborhood just outside of Topanga State Park. Now this area in California is known for its stunning canyon views and multi-million-dollar homes, and is also surrounded by a lot of dry brush. And that's a perfect fuel for fire, especially during California's peak Santa Ana wind season, which they're currently in. Weather conditions at the time of the initial call for service showed relative humidity levels below 10%, with Santa Ana winds gusting at approximately 50 to 60 miles per hour. Temperatures at the time were unseasonably warm, nearing 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Investigators are still determining the cause, but early reports suggest that electrical equipment failure could have been the ignition source. And that explanation actually makes quite a bit of sense given the high winds that were reported during that time. As many people know, all across the nation, not just in California, high winds many times equals downed power lines or other things like that. Now, when power lines get blown down to the ground and they're still energized, they do emit a lot of sparking, and with that dry brush that was also reported in the area, it's very likely that the wind event was a huge factor in bringing down some power lines, which very easily could have ignited some of that dry brush, leading to the spread of fire quite rapidly. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here, but given the reports initially early on, coupled with the winds, it is very likely that that could have been a possible factor in the start of the Palisades Fire. At the time of recording of this podcast episode, I was not able to find any indication that there were public safety power shutoffs that had occurred in the Los Angeles area on the 7th of January 2025. Now, public safety power shutoffs became a hot topic after the Palisades Fire, which destroyed the town of Paradise, California. During that incident, downed power lines ignited ground fuels, which led to a massive wildfire driven by winds, which destroyed an entire town. Since that time, public safety power shutoffs have been used in an attempt to reduce the risk that activated power lines have during high fire likelihood weather. This would be a red flag warning or something else that might be issued. In my opinion, I think that the high winds that were taking place could have been a reason to conduct a public safety power shutoff, knowing that the winds were so high and the conditions were ripe for wildfire. I'm not really sure what the criteria is in California for a public safety power shutoff, but I think that really could have helped in this instance if, in fact, it is found that energized power lines which were blown down during the windstorm were to blame for the ignition of the Palisades Fire. Now, initial response to this fire was Fire Station 69 of the Los Angeles Fire Department. Those firefighters quickly realized that they were going to be overwhelmed by the spread of this fire, so the Los Angeles Fire Department dispatched an additional 200 firefighters, 20 engines, and 3 helicopters to that scene. Now, those units were arriving on scene within minutes of the initial call, and their goal was to try to slow the spread of this fire and protect all the structures in that area. Command for the incident was set up at Fire Station 69, which was the closest station to that Topanga State Park ignition point. Unified Command was established, comprising of Cal Fire San Bernardino Inyo Mano Unit, Los Angeles County Fire Department, Los Angeles City Fire Department, and the Los Angeles Police Department. This collaboration aimed to coordinate efforts effectively across all those jurisdictions. Now, by 2 p.m., the fire had grown to nearly 1,500 acres, and the first Level 3 evacuation orders were issued for areas along Pacific Coast Highway and Topanga Canyon Boulevard. These were issued using the state of California's statewide public alert and warning system, coupled with the use of Zone Haven Aware, or what's now called Genesis. Now, the Genesis software allows for alerters to break down certain areas into zones. The zones that were initially evacuated for the Palisades Fire included the zone that covered the area from Pacific Coast Highway to the Encino Reservoir. Residents were directed to evacuation centers such as the Westwood Recreation Center, the Pasadena Convention Center, and also suggested that they continue to use the platforms like Zone Haven Aware or Genesis to be able to get real-time updates on evacuation zones, routes, which enhanced public safety communications during the time. Now, that same evening, January 7th, the Eaton Fire ignited near Eaton Canyon in the Altadena-Pasadena region of Los Angeles County. Initial reports came in shortly after 6:15 p.m. indicating a brush fire which was covering approximately 20 acres at the time of initial report. Residents adjacent to the canyon reported to emergency services that one of the electrical towers was on fire, suggesting a possible ignition source. By 6:30 p.m., Los Angeles County Fire Department dispatched initial attack resources, including engines and hand crews and aircraft, to contain the rapidly spreading fire, which was burning during the same time as the Palisades Fire. At 7:12 p.m., the fire had expanded to approximately 200 acres, prompting additional resource allocation and mutual aid requests. A unified command was established to coordinate this multi-agency response comprising of the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Pasadena Fire Department, and the United States Forest Service. This unified command ensured effective communication and resource management across jurisdictions, especially with another large fire burning nearby. As the fire rapidly expanded, evacuation orders were issued to protect residents the evening of January 7th. Level 3 evacuations for zones which included areas of East Loma and Altadena and parts of Pasadena, were issued, which were eventually upgraded and increased on January 8th, which extended to parts of Sierra Madre, Arcadia, and the entire community of La Canada Flint Ridge as the fire threatened these communities. Within 6 hours of ignition, the Eaton Fire had grown to 1,000 acres, exhibiting extreme fire behavior due to the high winds and dry conditions that existed at the time. By January 8th at 10:36 a.m., the fire's footprint had expanded beyond 10,600 acres, with containment efforts hampered by challenging terrain and weather, which left them at 0% containment at that time. As far as casualties, the fire resulted in at least 5 fatalities known to this point and numerous injuries, marking it as one of the deadliest wildfires in California's history. The rapid spread of the Eaton Fire led to significant disruptions. Tens of thousands of residents were displaced, with evacuation centers established to provide shelter and resources for them. Critical infrastructure, including power lines and water systems, were compromised, leading to severe outages in affected areas. Smoke and ash from the fire deteriorated air quality, prompting for health advisories for vulnerable populations. Firefighting efforts still continue today, with over 1,500 personnel engaged in containment operations on the Eaton Fire. Challenges such as steep terrain, shifting winds, and dry vegetation still persist, but progress is being made towards full containment. The Eaton Fire underscores the critical importance of emergency preparedness and interagency collaboration and community resilience in the face of these evolving wildfire threats. By the end of January 7th, it was clear that California needed a lot of help. The fires were growing rapidly, and local resources were stretched extremely thin. At 8 p.m., California submitted the first Emergency Management Assistance Compact, or EMAC, request for those unfamiliar. EMAC is a state-to-state mutual aid system that allows states to share resources during emergencies. California requested multiple structure firefighting teams, which were engines, crews, and equipment to protect homes and businesses. They also requested wildland firefighting teams, which are crews skilled in fighting wildland fires in forested and rugged terrain. They also requested incident management teams, or IMTs, which are experts to help oversee the complex fire operations. So let's break down that first wave of responses that they requested via EMAC. By January 8th, the first states began to respond. One of the first states to mobilize was Oregon, which mobilized 12 structural strike teams, which comprised of 240 firefighters and 60 engines. They were assigned to Ventura and Los Angeles counties to assist with urban interface fires. Their anticipated date of arrival was the morning of January 9th. Idaho also sent 5 task forces, which comprised of 104 firefighters and 25 engines. They were assigned to Ventura County with an anticipated arrival date of January 10th. Utah mobilized 3 strike teams, which were prepared to deploy by January 9th. And it wasn't just these states stepping up. On January 10th, Arizona and Nevada joined the fight, adding to the growing pool of resources flooding into the Los Angeles area. As mutual aid resources were being deployed, new fires also ignited. The Kenneth Fire was ignited on January 9th near Victory Boulevard west of Gilmore Street in the West Hills of Los Angeles County. The cause of that fire is currently still under investigation. At 3:12 p.m. Pacific Time, the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to reports of a brush fire in the West Hills area. Upon arrival, firefighters encountered a rapidly spreading fire driven by the strong Santa Ana winds. By 3:45, the fire had expanded to approximately 50 acres, prompting the deployment of additional resources, including ground crews and aerial support. Unified Command was established to coordinate the multi-agency response, comprising of the Los Angeles Fire Department, Ventura County Fire Department, and Los Angeles County Fire Department. This collaboration ensured effective communication and resource management across jurisdictions, again with multiple fires burning on the landscape in the area. As the fire rapidly expanded, evacuation orders were issued to protect residents. At 3:12 p.m., mandatory evacuation orders, or Level 3, were issued for the areas including Van Owen Street, south to Burbank Boulevard, and County Lane Road east to Valley Circle Boulevard. On the evening of January 9th, evacuation orders expanded to parts of Calabasas and Hidden Hills as the fire threatened these communities as well. On January 9th at 8:40 p.m., the fire's footprint expanded to approximately 960 acres, with containment efforts hampered by challenging terrain and weather. On January 10th, the fire grew to 1,000 acres, prompting additional evacuations and additional resource allocation. On January 12th, at the time of the recording of this podcast, all mandatory evacuation orders were lifted as containment efforts progressed. The Hearst Fire also ignited on January 7, 2025, near Diamond Road near Sylmar in Los Angeles County. The cause of that fire is still currently under investigation as well. At 10:25 p.m. Pacific Time, the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to reports of a brush fire near I-20, the Foothill Freeway, and Yarnell Street in Sylmar. Upon arrival, firefighters encountered a rapidly spreading fire driven by strong winds. At 10:42, Los Angeles Fire Department, along with Los Angeles County Fire Department, arrived on scene to try to combat the blaze. Unified Command was established to coordinate the multi-agency response, which included the National Forest Service, Angeles National Forest, Los Angeles County Fire Department, Los Angeles Fire Department, and Cal Fire. As the fire rapidly expanded, evacuation orders were issued to protect the residents in those areas. At 11 p.m. Pacific Time, Level 3 evacuation orders were issued for the areas of Cal Grove, Eternal, Newhall Pass, as well as Wildwood. On January 8th, evacuation orders were extended to parts of Newhall Pass, southern Clarita Valley, as the fire threatened those communities as well. At 12:36 a.m. Pacific time on January 8th, the fire's footprint had expanded to approximately 850 acres, with containment efforts hampered by the challenging terrain and weather encountered by the fire crews. On January 9th, the fire grew an additional 771 acres, prompting additional evacuation and requests for resources. As of the recording of this podcast, all evacuation orders for that fire have been lifted as containment efforts have progressed. As I conclude this episode, I want to take a moment to step back and reflect on everything that we've covered. Over the past several days, the fires burning across Los Angeles County and beyond have created a complex tapestry of events, each thread a critical piece in understanding the whole. From the ignition points to the unified responses, from the deployment of mutual aid to the integration of advanced technology, every detail contributes to a larger narrative that shows the immense challenges faced during these disasters. First, let's address what this episode was not. As I mentioned at the beginning, this episode was not about assigning political blame. It's easy in the heat of a crisis like this to fall into the trap of pointing fingers, whether that's at political officials, utilities, land management agencies, or even individual residents. But what I've aimed to do here is to strip away the noise and present just the facts. Just the facts as they are currently known. The objective today has been to tell a clear and concise story of what has happened so far to this point. The fires ignited under extraordinarily dangerous conditions. Local agencies took immediate action with the resources they had. Mutual aid was requested and provided under the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, or EMAC, and communities came together to face an unprecedented series of challenges. Everything beyond that, assigning blame, dividing into policy debates, or speculating about systemic failures, falls outside the scope of today's episode. Those discussions have a place, but today I focused on the real-time response and the unfolding human and logistical story behind these events. As we speak, investigations into the ignition sources of each fire are ongoing. While it would be premature to draw definitive conclusions, here are some working theories that have emerged based on initial reports. For the Palisades Fire, early indications suggest a potential connection to electrical infrastructure, possibly downed power lines or equipment failure. Utilities operating in the area have acknowledged that high winds and dry conditions can exacerbate risks, but further evidence will need to be analyzed before making a final determination. For the Eaton Fire, similarly, reports of electrical towers sparking near Eaton Canyon have led to speculation about utility infrastructure involvement. Again, nothing is conclusive, and this will be a key area for investigators as they continue. For the Kenneth Fire, the fire's location and the lack of immediate indicators like downed power lines or other natural causes have led some to suspect human activity, possibly accidental or maybe intentional. Local law enforcement is working alongside fire investigators to determine that cause. For the Hearst Fire, this fire, which was ignited near Sylmar, appears to have started close to a major transportation corridor. Some have suggested a possible connection to the vehicle activity or maybe a mechanical failure, though this is far from confirmed. What's important to remember is that fire investigations take time. Teams of experts comb through physical evidence, analyze weather and environmental conditions, and sometimes even reconstruct the sequence of events leading up to ignition. Until these investigations are complete, speculation can do more harm than good. So for now, we wait. We trust the authorities and investigative teams to do their work, and we owe them patience as they strive to provide clarity. What stands out most in this series of events is the interconnected nature of the response. These fires didn't just highlight the vulnerabilities of Los Angeles, they also showcase strength and coordination of emergency management systems. From the use of the statewide alert and warning system to the precise mapping capabilities of Zonehaven, this disaster has served as a testing ground for cutting-edge technology and public safety. It's clear that the tools we have today are more advanced than ever, and yet, as demonstrated by the erroneous activation alert sent out during the Kenneth Fire, even the best systems are not infallible. But technology alone isn't enough. What truly makes or breaks a response effort is the people. The firefighters battling on the front lines, the emergency managers coordinating resources, and the communities coming together to support one another. These are the stories that deserve our attention. Every disaster leaves behind lessons, and this one will undoubtedly be no different. While it's too early to draw sweeping conclusions, a few preliminary takeaways are already emerging. From the clear evacuation protocols established through Zone Haven to the rapid deployment of mutual aid, preparedness has played a crucial role in mitigating what could have been an even greater disaster. While advanced systems like Everbridge allow for rapid communication, errors like the countywide evacuation alert remind us that precision and testing are just as important as speed. This incident will likely spark conversations about how to prevent such mistakes in the future. The response from Oregon, Idaho, Utah, and other states underscores the importance of interstate cooperation. Without EMAC, local resources would have been overwhelmed. Finally, we can't forget the human cost. The fatalities, the injuries, the homes and livelihoods destroyed. These are not just numbers on a page. They're real people, real families, and real communities who will feel the impact of these fires for years. As responders continue their work, let's not lose sight of the courage and resilience shown by those on the ground. Whether it's the firefighters battling exhaustion and flames, neighbors helping neighbors evacuate, or emergency managers coordinating resources across state lines. These are acts of bravery and selflessness, and they remind us of the strength of the human spirit. Today, as I record this podcast, the fires are still burning. The investigations are still underway, and the healing process for affected communities is only just beginning. There's much more to learn, much more to do, but one thing is certain: the events of January 2025 will shape how we approach wildfire management for years to come. As I wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Disasters like these remind us not just of the vulnerabilities in our systems, but of the incredible resilience that emerges when people come together. These fires have tested us, but they've also shown us what's possible when we rise to the challenge. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most significant wildfire events in recent history, and the first of 2025. If you're inspired to help both responders and victims of these fires, there are trusted organizations on the ground that need your support today. You can donate to the American Red Cross, which provides food, shelter, and support to families affected by these fires. You can visit them at redcross.org. The California Community Foundation Wildfire Relief Fund supports long-term recovery efforts for communities impacted by these fires. You can visit them at calfund.org/wildfire-relief-fund. Direct Relief, which helps supply emergency medical equipment and aid to responders on the front lines right now, and you can visit them at directrelief.org, or the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation, which supports firefighters and first responders working tirelessly to protect lives and property. You can visit them at supportlafd.org. You can find these links in the show notes or go directly to their websites I just mentioned. Even a small contribution can make a big difference in helping those affected by these fires. If you're unable to donate financially, consider sharing these resources with your network or volunteering your time with local organizations involved in the recovery. Thank you again for listening, staying informed, and considering how you can help. Together we can support these communities in their time of need. This has been another episode of EOC Podcast, Emergency Operations Conversations. I'm so glad that you joined me today. I thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next one.